I am recording. Captions are on. Cool. All right, so it's my pleasure to introduce you all to Daniel Puentes. Daniel is actually involved in many of those logos that you just saw. Not only is he a PhD candidate at Michigan State University for physics and astronomy, he's also on the national board for the Union of Concerned Scientists, which you all may have heard about. He used to be the Central Hub Chair for NSPN, which was also a part of our short courses. He is the current Vice President of Finance for MSU SciComm, and he does a lot more. So today he'll be leading the mock simulation. Thank you so much for joining us today, Daniel, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you so much for having me, Chelsea. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with GARD and promote this incredibly important mission that scientists around the world are very passionate about. So, like she had mentioned, my name is Daniel Puentes. I hope everybody is doing well, and welcome to GARD's first ever mock simulation that we'll be going through today. All right, so can everybody see my screen? Wonderful. So, well, we just went through that. Today's mock simulation is going to be on antimicrobial resistance and impact that it can have on cancer. It's something that not many people in the general public are aware of, but it can lead to a lot of complications, especially during treatments such as chemotherapy. For example, if an individual is going through chemotherapy and they're going to be more likely to be infected by some sort of bacteria due to their lowered immune system that can take place during chemotherapy. And if those bacteria happen to be antimicrobial resistant, or I'll just say AMR from now on, the chances of fatality are going to increase. This little figure here just highlights how AMR also can contribute to the proliferation of cancer as well. So you really see it from multiple avenues, whether it's during treatment or being the cause of cancer in different people. And AMR is a pretty hot topic, honestly, right now in research. So it felt like this was a natural topic to pursue when it came to developing this mock simulation, especially for this group of people. So I thought that why not go with this for the first mock simulation for GARD. Now, how many people here have done a mock simulation? Just go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom feature if you have.
This is actually my first. So the answer for me is no, I have not been there.
Okay, so it's essentially a simulation. I'm sure people are used to doing simulations like on different software to try and make predictions about how certain events might unfold. Well, policy analysts and different academics in political science often do simulations to try and understand what is going on with a certain direction that different policies can take. I saw somebody also said that this is their first mock simulation as well. So I'm really glad to have a group of people here that are going to be new to this, as well as those that are going to be learning about how people in the policy world do this. So here's what to expect. Oh, okay. Annalie Campos has been part of one. Wonderful. Just out of curiosity, Annalie, what mock simulation have you been a participant in?
I usually do simulations in my classrooms when I teach, cultures and anything about urban transformation. So those are mostly fun simulations that I get to have with my students.
Oh, wonderful. And they're wonderful teaching methods as well. I'm really happy to hear that you're using those in the classroom. They can really help students understand and really think critically about the topic that they're doing a simulation about. So wonderful to hear that you're doing that. So what to expect in this particular simulation? So we're here for more or less 2 hours, or we don't have to go all the way, depending on how the discussions go. So for each stage, there will be 3 stages. We'll then spend 20 minutes per stage. I see my video is lagging. Don't worry about that. After each stage, there will be 5 minutes for each group to explain their findings after each stage. And then afterwards, once we've completed the simulation, we'll have a quick little reflection and discussion at the end. During your 5-minute explanations, though, during the 20-minute stages, however, you're encouraged to briefly research your topic so that way you can understand the situation better. Usually whenever these simulations are happening in real time, or if you were to pretend that these events are happening in real time, they typically happen a lot longer. So we're trying to recreate that feeling in a much shorter time scale, essentially here. So hopefully everybody enjoys the simulation, and we're going to see how it goes by the end of this. So without any further ado, let us move on to stage 1. So stage 1 is...
Wait, Daniel.
What's up?
Wait, since with the limited amount of people, close off your slides and reopen it to accommodate for the updates. So we have 3 groups instead of 4.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about
Oh,
that.
I
There
see.
you go. You see? Yeah.
Thank you. So, like Chelsea mentioned, we changed up the simulation a bit. It was always going to be flexible to the number of people that came. So thank you so much for coming. In stage 1, there's been a noticeable increase in cancer-induced bacterial infections around the world. Different governments have been noticing, as well as health institutions. And this has led to a strain in healthcare systems, and it has also led to a strain for medical experts and doctors to be able to provide care for people that are either infected with these AMRs or dealing with the aftermath, which is the cancer. And you need to think about, how do you communicate this information to find out how to help with that strain in the healthcare system? So typically in mock simulations, you're going to have different groups of people that are going to think about the problem in a different way. In this simulation, we have 3 groups: the ambassadors for the United Nations, scientists all around the world, and impacted residents that are either being infected with the AMR or have cancer as a result from AMR. Or you just live in a community that's being that sees this uptick in cancer-inducing bacterial infections. So for each group, I'm going to go ahead and join each breakout room so that way I can share with you the questions that you'll be considering. But for right now, let's go ahead and send you into the breakout rooms. So don't worry, you'll get your questions to consider right afterwards. So with that, let's do that at the breakout rooms. So, okay. Chelsea, you're going to send the breakout rooms out?
Yeah, while I'm doing that, you can show them the next slides and explain the questions to them so they all get a bigger picture.
Okay, got it. So if you're in the UN ambassador question, one of the group, one of the things you'll want to consider is who do you contact with this information? Who are going to be those people that really need to know about where these upticks in cancer-induced bacterial infections are taking place. How do you advocate on the global scale for proper measures to be taken towards this uptick in infections and strain in healthcare? Just because everywhere is going to be a little differently, but the advocacy techniques will be very similar no matter where you're from. The scientists should consider what resources are needed to help reduce the strain on the healthcare system. Again, you're not expected to have the answers to these questions. This is something that you're going to research. This includes you as well, the UN ambassadors. And then also, what work do you need to help combat this uptick? What are some of the bacteria that are commonly linked to be carcinogenic? And then finally, for the impacted residents, think about this. What do impacted residents need to know when it comes to these bacterial infections? How are they being contracted, for example? And then what resources and contacts do they need to help, first of all, just identify and manage these different issues that are being generated from these AMR? So with that being said, the breakout rooms have been established, and we will now we will add you all to them. So
Yep, you should all be able to join.
if you have any questions, just reach out.
I'm gonna go give the link, but Chile and Rabanta, you can join the breakout rooms.
Oh, wonderful.
Trying to figure out a role.
All right, so let's just make sure, Chelsea, everybody's back, right?
Yeah,
All right, wonderful. So now let us just take 5 minutes to hear from each team. I should have also mentioned maybe pick a spokesperson for each team as well. So whoever's feeling brave enough, go ahead and take some time to discuss what you thought about during your session. So let's start off first with the UN ambassadors.
So I will take, because I was the one doing this. This is a very interesting exercise, because what I have noticed is that although our job was to be a UN ambassador, it took us a while to even think like an ambassador, right? We kept going back to be the brain of a scientist, like, no, you are a scientist. You have to go back as an ambassador. What is an ambassador? What does an ambassador do? So anyway, we talk about like developing awareness, making partnerships to make this aware for people, present data, provide technical briefing, global campaign, share good practices. Many of these ideas came from Carl. Carl had a better mindset of being an ambassador. And then, of course, trying to understand how resistance develops, so then we can produce some kind of briefing materials to the UN Assembly. Briefly.
And what kinds of partnerships were you thinking about? Like partnerships with who?
Good question. We have not gotten to that point.
Okay, not a problem. Yeah, sometimes 20 minutes can be hard because, like you had mentioned, and that's why it's so important for scientists to participate in these kinds of exercises, because then it allows you to get inside the mind of a group of people that you're not used to thinking about, really, when it comes to these kinds of exercises. But still play a very vital role when it comes to helping to mitigate the issues that arise from these things. So wonderful. That's still fine. So thank you. That's I think really good. Thank you so much for sharing. Next, let's hear from the scientists. What was your team discussing?
Okay, I think should I share?
Oh, would you like to share your screen?
No, I think I
Oh,
have
you
a
meant
You
you
can
meant
just
share.
discuss,
I see.
Revanta.
share.
Revanta, you
Yes.
can just discuss.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, okay, I'll just discuss. Okay, thank you, Benji, and all the dignitary over here. So the task that was given for us about the what are the things we should do for the reduce this strain on the healthcare system, and what are the bacteria that is involved for the to be carcinogenic. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to give the idea about the cancer bacteria are usually suspected to be cause the cancer, and interestingly, we know, and I got the a lot of interaction with the my another colleagues, Matthew from the Cameroon. Okay, and I list out the some of the point after discussion with him, and so basically the best example for the that's cancer bacteria, as we call it, the Helicobacter pylori. That's the commonly cause the gastric cancer, and there are other bacteria also involved, like the Helicobacter pylori and the other Campylobacter, sometimes Salmonella typhimurium, Mycobacterium, tuberculosis, and the Porphyromonas gingivalis. These are the involved, respectively, with the Helicobacter for the gastric carcinoma, and Campylobacter for the small intestine lymphoma, and the Salmonella, basically that's hepatobiliary carcinoma, and the Mycobacterium, obviously, for the lung cancer, and that's Porphyromonas is for the pancreatic cancer. So for this, what's the things we have to do to reduce the strain on the healthcare system? So we list out the some of the things. We have to isolate the organism first. That organism should be identified or isolate. So we have to do the complete characterization of that particular organism from the just the biochemical as well as from the molecular part. And after that, we need to do AST, okay, to find out the which antibiotics do work for that particular organism. For that, we have to follow the that's procedure. Usually, that's task is given. That's a cancer-associated bacteria. So sometimes, or most of the times, that organism may be the resistant organism. So if this organism is resistant to the antibiotic, after doing the susceptibility test, we have to go for the MIC and MBC determination for the, I guess, the particular drug, so that which drug is responsive for that particular antimicrobial for treating this patient. Okay, so we have to determine this the MIC, minimum inhibitory concentration, and the MBC for that particular drug. And also we have to know the kinetics of the drug, okay, in vitro as well as the in vivo for that particular strain of the organism, because we have to determine the, or we have to evaluate the pharmacokinetics and the pharmacodynamics of that particular drug should be evaluated, because until and unless we don't know about the all these parameter for that particular organism, and we never can treat with the this particular drug with the this cancer patient. And also we have to be educated and aware about the posology to the drug uses for the cancer curing portion, or the from the cancer patient. And the last but not least, we have to use the valid prescription based medication, because in our country, in Southeast Asia and in Asian country also, especially Southeast Asia, and then also Africa, as I talked with the Matthew regarding the prescription, here is also not a good practice of following the that's the prescription based medication. So we should strictly follow that valid prescription based medication, and drugs should be purchased from the That's the registered pharmacy instead of the taking from the black market or from the other shop in the market. So that's the things we have discussion. So yeah, thank you.
Well, I am not surprised that the scientist group had a lot to say when it came to what kinds of bacteria are out there and what are the things that can be done. So very good work. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Rabanta.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, let's hear from the impacted residents group. Who would like to go ahead and share what they discussed there?
You are muted. Annalie, you are muted.
Okay, all right, as usual. So, yes, we are the impacted residents. So I'm going to talk three things. We kind of struggled back and forth in establishing what lens are we going to use to analyze our homework. B, understanding that different communities will respond to the news, to the incident in different ways. And C, the suggested actions that we will do as residents. So yeah, like I said, being evaluator researchers, our group was like, all right, let's do this. Let's put our shoes into the residents and then researchers. So anyways, that's all. So we finally came up with the idea that different communities will respond differently. So for example, if Jane assumes that she is from a learned or more educated family, she may connect with her doctor or get into the media, find out more about the incidents or the uptake. If I am a less educated, no access to all sorts of information, I probably will not worry about the cancer incidences or potential for cancer. I will worry more about my next meal. Okay, so that's kind of a realization, a reality out there for people in the world who probably have less than $2 a day. They're not going to worry about what cancer is and how AMR is like. It's going to be where will I get, my family will get the next meal. The other conversations that we have specifically is where do we get the information? Yes, we may go to the social media, to the doctor, but in reality, most people in my community, in everywhere, they're going to start with people they know, they trust, and that would be their families, friends, and generally people they trust. And so they're going to learn, we're going to need to learn about what's the impact, what's the impact of these bacteria in our system, in our body. How are we going to get it? Mode of transmission. And where can we get help? So those are the three things that were kind of, resonating in our discussion. And I'm glad that Georgina joined us because she really put all these things into context, in the context of Kenya. Does that sound clear to you?
Yeah. No, that was perfect. Honestly, I really appreciated how you took the time to think about different communities are going to respond differently. That is something that is very easy to forget, especially when we are at where we are, depending on where we're coming from. We have different priorities in mind, so it's really important to think and have that consideration. So I'm really glad that took place during your group, and I think the rest of the group here appreciated that insight that you were giving to the rest of us. So thank you very much. That was phenomenal. All right. So now we're going to move into stage 2, which is actually the scientists had already covered a lot of these different bacteria that are listed here on the slide that can lead to hold on. This slide is a little incorrect. Not all of these bacteria cause gastric carcinoma. These bacteria can cause other issues such as cancer of the blood, cancer of the pancreas. Like I know for a fact, Porphyromonas gingivalis will lead to pancreatic cancer. So that is just a small mistake. Do not worry about that. This stage is going to focus on rapid diagnostic tests for each of these different bacterium that can lead to the onset of different cancers. It's going to be the same kind of format where you're going to have 3 groups: the UN ambassadors, the scientists, and the impacted residents. And just to go through each of these questions really quickly. So for the UN ambassadors, consider what needs to be done to implement these rapid diagnostics for the bacteria across different member states of the United Nations. And then also consider what type of information do the ambassadors need to properly advocate for this. Now, for the scientists, we're going to ask you, what are the quickest and cheapest and most accurate rapid diagnostic tests available for these particular bacteria? And if there aren't any good options, what kinds of resources would you need to create a rapid diagnostic test as soon as possible? And then how are you going to be able to convince patients to even take these tests? And then for the impacted residents, I want you to consider what kinds of concerns will these residents have with tests, and how would these concerns be addressed? And then how are the tests going to be advertised to the public in order to develop trust? And finally, as it was actually discussed really recently, a lot of times these residents aren't going to prioritize taking these tests compared to making sure that they're getting food on the table. So how are you going to make sure that these tests are not only a priority, but how are they going to be accessible for those that can be difficult otherwise? So with that, the breakout rooms are open. Feel free to join, and we'll return back in 20 minutes. And as always, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me or Chelsea.
So, Enan and Nozogi, if you have any questions, let us know, but you can join the breakout rooms. There's an option at the bottom, or it should have popped up for you to join a breakout room.
Mm-hmm.
And I already put it on the Google Docs while you were talking, so don't worry.
Wonderful.
You can just stop sharing your screen. That's not a big deal.
Okay. So everything causes carcinogenic.
Wait,
Everybody, I heard there were very interesting discussions taking place here. Let me just share my screen real quickly. Okay. All right, so let us go ahead and we'll do the same as before, where we'll give each group 5 minutes to provide a briefing on what they discussed. So let's actually switch up the ordering this time. Why don't we start with the impacted residents this time and work our way up?
Okay. glad to share. So the questions were, what concerns will residents have with these tests and how will they be addressed? So the group, again, we needed to place ourselves in different shoes because different communities will respond differently. So, but specifically, whether educated, non-educated, and what have you, cost will be one concern. Okay, the others are whether our information will be publicized. So concern on public health information or private health information. And there are misinformation out there. So fear for what this test might do to our body is a reality for communities. The accuracy and availability or accessibility of these tests. So those are the concerns that were kind of, popular and we were gravitating towards for the communities. So how do we address these concerns? Well, number one is it's gotta be affordability to be on top of the ranks. We also want to address the fear or concerns on private health information by having the communities, the residents, come up with their decision. An informed consent is what we're thinking about. I'd like to be able to take control of the fact that I can allow you, the testers, to release my information or not. So private health information will have to be addressed by informed consent. And then how do we address those misinformation, whether the test is accurate or not? And we thought educational materials are really ramping up a community-based, easy to follow, easy to understand educational materials and even toolkits. And we can have the social media platform to help us educate the communities or us to be educated. And finally, to make this test accessible, it has to be not just affordable, but it has to be part of a government, some sort of a public health entity or body to make it accessible and delivered to our homes. We are thinking about what happened to COVID-19 and how the government's efforts to make the test available, really worked, and it helped and it saved lives. So I think those are what we said. Unless I missed something, Jane, Regina, jump in. Thank you all.
Thank you. No, that was really good, because I mean, education is half the battle right there, because why would people want to participate in something if they don't know about it, when there have been historically groups of people that have been exploited in the past in the medical field for nefarious purposes, unfortunately. So yeah, it's really important to build that education and trust there. So great work. Next, let's hear from the scientists.
Very present.
By all means.
Okay. Thank you for giving this opportunity, and we have the good discussion with among our scientists, and what we realized that in your first part, what are the quickest and cheapest, most accurate rapid diagnostic tests? About that, really, sometimes if we talk together, some tests are available for the quickest, but not the cheapest. So in overall, we can say we don't have just the rapid diagnostic test to detect this pathogen in our context. for the our Nepal, India, and also from the Cameroon also. And we are using the conventional method to isolate the organism. That's a microbiological test, some PCR, and also some rapid test is available, like the Jishan mentioned about the Vidas, that's available in the India. That's the immunofluorescence based technique. And the another is about the this nano rapid test. But things is that they are still very costly. So if you want to test the helicobacter, it's cost around the per sample. It costs around the 15 euro in India. I don't know about the idea about the whether it is available in Nepal or not. I don't have the idea. And this Vidas is around the $30 per test. So in sum, what we can say, we don't have the that's the cheapest method to afford the to the everybody. So we need this rapid test to be developed or to be practiced in the for the everybody use, and that should be available. And in second part, if there are not good option, what resources do you need to create the rapid diagnostic test possible, available test as soon as possible? So I think that's the aspect where we are joining to this GARD and to share the some of the idea and the things what we are doing in our aspect to develop the this rapid diagnostic kit or rapid diagnostic test available. So since I know the Professor Banji, she is working since a long time, and that's biosensor. We have studied, and we know that biosensor may be the best option for the developing the this rapid diagnostic kit, and we have a lot of example for the work for that, because in from Nepal also we work for the that's the detecting the tuberculosis organism from the that's the tuberculosis from the human patients, and also some other evidence for the detecting the other pathogen also. I am feeling proud to be part of Professor Vanji. I'm also working in some part for the this biosensor, and recently I get the success of that using the that's the biosensor for the detecting the salmonella. Similarly, that protocol may be adapted to the other part also. So validation of this fact, whatever we available in this previous meeting also, Professor Banji shared the lot of other organisms that can be detected through the biosensor, and we can use that prototype for testing in our context and develop that things in our various aspect, not only for the human, not only for the animal, for the environment, and also we can work together for the in the One Health aspect. And for this, I think we need some training. We have to share the some that's the technology among the GARD member, and the GARD may be the best platform to share this idea and to adopt the things available. And from our team member, that's the Matthew also mentioned about the equipment or training needed to do the essay. We have to share these things properly so that we can do work from our places. And the last part of this discussion, that's how will they convince their patient to take the test? I think obviously if the test is affordable and the quick, then that's the best way. Everybody will adopt this test. And also what we are discussing that, suppose if we are going to some shops or some places, if you are purchasing the chicken, then if you just imagine that if you know the that chicken is free from the this cholesterol resistant organism, or if you know that the chicken is free from the Campylobacter within few minutes, then that will be the best for our rapid diagnostic test available. for the patients as well as for our food microorganism also. So for that we can aware the people. For that, that's early diagnosis is the best for the effective treatment and to adapt the effective treatment and for the saving the life from the various disease like the as early as possible. Okay, and also we can take the help from the social scientists about the how they perceive about the that's the new technology adoption about regarding the study about this adoption the new technology, and we can sensitize the people for testing that also. I think that's the parts I covered. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. And then finally, let's hear from the UN ambassadors. I'm seeing a lot of parallel between scientists and the impacted residents, so that's good. Let's hear from the UN ambassadors.
Yeah, so we're trying to calibrate our minds to become UN ambassadors. So the current scenario, we talk about maybe policy changes and global standards, raising awareness, and especially involving private and public partnership for moving along implementation. And cost is a major constraint in implementing rapid tests for surveillance, and then of course compliance on surveillance. So the current scenario here right now is that there are national and international surveillance programs on antimicrobial resistance, but based on the database and based on the literature, although this is a UN or global networks, only like developing wealthy countries are able to participate because of cost. The standard requirements is quite intensive, requires laboratory facilities, and many of the developing countries do not have those facilities. So that's one. So if you look at those international networks, mostly North America, Europe, and then a few countries in Asia like South Korea, Japan, China. Those are few participants in Asia. But then the other constraint there is that the result of the yearly the surveillance is yearly. So that's the other constraint. So there's the facility requirement, cost requirement, and then time reporting. What is needed, especially in this, when you are dealing with patients and antimicrobial resistance, would be like near real-time detection and network alert, quick network alert, so that then people will be alerted of what's in the region. Say, for example, let's go back to the African swine fever example, or the influenza, avian influenza virus example. They are regional or local based type of strains. And so your diagnostic must be addressing those types of strains, because you can be developing a diagnostic for strain 1, but if the region has strain 2, then your diagnostic may miss the point there. So the idea is this rapid near real-time monitoring from the UN point of view, and this is where the UN can come in by developing like an alert, network alert, just like, you know, how the police at Michigan State would alert you like, hey, the other day, like there's a person with a knife, so get out of that area. Something like that, right? It may not be that fast, but something like that, where you say, here's an infection in the US, and there's an infection, say, in India. Are they of the same strain? Because if they're of the same strain, then we can deploy the specific diagnostic for that particular strain. So anyway, that's part of our discussion.
Sorry, I was muted. Wonderful, and I could tell that you were thinking about it in a different way, but I can see the scientists still creeping in a little bit. So interesting, interesting.
It's very hard to get out of our science brains. Very hard. I think you have given us the most difficult assignment.
but I trusted you with it too. So all right, we're in the final stage, and we're assuming now that all right, now even with the diagnostic test for carcinogenic bacteria, AMR is still going to be a pretty big threat. And interestingly enough, it's not recognized as a specific UN Sustainable Development Goal. And there's a need for global collaboration, for example, GARD, to help promote and get the prioritization of AMR going. And there have been different studies that have shown that AMR death toll could catch up to cancer as being one of the leading causes of death in the world by 2050. So your next stage is, it's going to be 10 minutes. So we're going to really ramp up and try to really show how it can be a little stressful sometimes when you're asked to figure out direction under a time constraint, which is typically the environment that these policymakers go through, and as well as scientists that work with government, is let's just start off with the UN ambassadors. So how do you get the UN to develop global collaboration and a recognition for AMR and this is for everybody, by the way. The UN specifically will focus on how do you get the UN to recognize AMR as an SDG, and how will the SDG be phrased? And then how do you convince members of the UN to provide research funding for the AMR? For the scientists, what resources do you need to convince the UN? How do you improve global collaboration to recognize AMR? And then what are alternative ways to address infections if antimicrobials are not used? And how can solving AMR help achieve other SDGs? And then for the impacted residents, how will residents benefit and or be impacted if global collaboration and recognition is achieved for AMR? And what would outreach look like for impacted residents and this SDG? So you're going to have 10 minutes. So since this isn't as intensive of a research question as the previous two stages, you're going to be asked to just think on your feet more or less and try to answer them as best as you can. So with that, join the breakout rooms. You should have access to the questions, and I'll see you all in 10 minutes. I'll let you know when there's 5 minutes left. Good luck.
For us, the hardest for us. And I will share with you what Carl made a comment when it's our time to present.
Okay, so we're running short on time. This is the first iteration we've ever done this, so bear with us. So instead of 5 minutes, we're going to just ask people to just very, very briefly share what was discussed. Try to do it in under 2 minutes, which is good practice for you anyway, since that's pretty much all the time you'll get anyways when it comes to explaining your position in very heavy bureaucratic situations. So let's start off with the scientist. In 2 minutes, explain what your discussions led to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again. So regarding our task, the first question we have to answer is what resources do you need to convince the UN? Obviously, we all know that the health is one of the top SDG. So statistics that's related with the AMR should be related with the health. So without achieving solving the problem of the AMR, we cannot achieve the health as a SDG. So we have to promote and we have to collaborate the research for this AMR worldwide. Okay. and each member country should present the current data of the AMR from their respective WHO representative to the WHO, and ultimately WHO will be the best platform or best way that they can help to get this our target. Okay, so in the second part, how do you improve the global collaboration to recognize the AMR? I think this GARD would be the best forum. So from each country, that would be the one working group representing from the every country, and we should go through the different technology of that's the media, poster, rally, and like this some other awareness campaign, and also do some advertisement for the raising this issue. And third part, that what are the alternative way to address the infection if antimicrobial are not used? I think this is not sufficient time to say the answer for that. There are the other alternative, as earlier mentioned, there's some bacteriophage that has been practiced to control the infection. So we have to commercialize, we have to make available of this alternative to this antimicrobial, treating the antimicrobial resistant organism. And the fourth part, that how can we solve the AMR, help to achieve the other SDG? Obviously, if we can detect the early this AMR problem or this organism related to the AMR or the that's the organism, then obviously we can achieve the that's one of the top 3 SDG, that's the health, and ultimately we can solve the this AMR problem also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just over 2 minutes, so not too bad. Let's go next to the impacted residents.
I'm going to speak on behalf of our team. So we know that relating everything with the recent events, the pandemic due to COVID, that global collaboration has been and played an important role. And as a resident, impacted resident, we know that through the news. So if global partnership is going to happen to address antimicrobial resistance, we know that residents will have more access to innovation. So that's one important SDG. We will have a better or healthy lives. And then at the same time, reduce, if we have access to innovations, equal access to innovations, then equality can be addressed. So that's what we spoke related to that. And Annalie will add more about the outreach.
Right. So how is the outreach looking like? We are going to expect or hope that there is movement among the women in the communities. There will be, they tend to have like a special way of conveying information. So women empowerment will be part of that outreach program. Also educational outreach. We want to make sure that trust can be built. So we expect from the community that will be part of the program. Finally, we have Regina summarizing our thoughts.
All right. As residents, I think we are given the easiest task, and yeah, the impact and benefit from this collaboration and recognition is that the nations will be healthy, and this will impact on growth of the economies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was nice hearing from all of you. And then finally, let's hear from the UN ambassadors. 2
So,
minutes.
UN ambassador, we really were struggling. The previous tasks were hard, but this is the hardest. So anyway, we could include this in the SDG, but on the other hand, AMR is not only a low-income country problem, it's not only a poor country problem, it's a country of all. Because even developed countries are affected by AMR. So that is where we were trying to struggle on how do we address this question. But Carl, would you like to share what you just said for the remaining time?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, Ma'am Banji. So, yeah, earlier our team is talking about if we should include the AMR into the SDG or if we incorporate, but the discussion is still ongoing, and when I'm scrutinizing about the agenda, I'm really thinking about the issue of antimicrobial resistance is a big issue that can a big issue. So I think developing a new SDG for that is a really good thing also, because we're not talking about antimicrobial resistance only for human. We also have an AMR for animal and also for our environment. So including it on the other SDG could be a difficult part for solving the problem. So that's one thing we are really hard on pinpoint of what we're doing, if we should include it or if we should develop another SDG for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Flora, would you like to add?
I'm good.
You're good.
I'm really struggling, but I'm learning a lot.
All right. Thank you. Well, you're not the only one. All right. Take it from there,
Thank
Daniel.
you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for those very thoughtful answers. I know it's hard to do that really quickly. So now we're in the reflection period. I know we're running a little bit over, but this can be either as long or as short as you would like. Really, I want you to consider, like, were there any perspectives that surprised you from other groups? Would any of your decision making have changed based on what you heard from what other groups said? How can GARD move forward with what we have learned today based on this kind of information and the exercise that you all participated in? And then finally, what are your final thoughts? Anybody can really jump in and answer any of these questions. You can also write it in the chat if you would like. Oh, I actually got a personal question. How do you relate AMR to substance use disorder? That's an interesting question. I think, well, similarly to how whenever a person is being treated for cancer, right, their immune system is going to be lowered. And whenever individuals are participating in substance use disorder, or they have a substance use disorder, their immune system will also likely decrease. So having, by addressing AMR, you're giving those that unfortunately have to deal with substance use disorder a better chance of being able to recover and actually getting past that. So I think that's one way that AMR can relate there. But by all means, anybody can just jump in and take any of these questions. I thought this was really interesting.
Just based on my experience, we need more disciplinary people in our team, in GARD, to help us understand the other people's perspectives. I mean, the reason why we were struggling is we were never, or we've not never, but we were not really exposed to how UN or like those types, not necessarily that particular, but that type of field and that type of those types of careers think, right? We have not been exposed to that. So we were really struggling on how to even think like them.
It's not easy. It's certainly not easy.
And to think that you have the most glamorous position.
Who?
Yes, ma'am.
The ambassadors, the UN.
Oh, it's certainly the most publicized, right?
Yes. it's really hard for me. It's really hard to shift to become a UN ambassador from what you're really doing. Because if just to give you a background, I am a plant pathology, so we're developing this detection toolkits on the plant pathogen. So it's really hard for me also to transition on the antimicrobial resistance on the human part, and of course to be a UN ambassador. So it's really a challenging to be. It's a challenging part to be as a UN ambassador, and of course the topic. And it's really nice to converse with different kinds of experts. So I really learn a lot from this moment.
And you know, a lot of institutions, I don't know, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but um, places I've seen, they, for example, have a lot of clubs that do Model UN. Even in primary school, there's clubs like Model UN where people that have interest in science can participate and go through the motions of what it's like to be involved in these higher order institutions, debating on what are the best ways to move forward. And it's so important to get scientists involved, right? Because they're providing a whole new perspective that most people don't think about. So there's a lot of parallels between what we do to here and what others are that come from non-science backgrounds do when considering these issues.
We really need experts. That's the bottom line. We really need experts.
Yeah. Would anybody else like to share? I know it was a very, very probably different exercise that you're not used to. It's not easy to role play. It's not. No, it's it's really not.
Right. I've never been an ambassador, so I don't know what they're thinking.
Well, you know, on that, I won't keep you all any longer. Really quickly before Chelsea wraps up, thank you so much, everybody, for your participation in this exercise. I hope each and every one of you gained something out of this, whether it was a new perspective or a new way of thinking when it came to understanding how your science impacts the world around you and how your science can be used to solve important problems that could come up anytime tomorrow. And with that, the floor is yours, Chelsea.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, everyone.
I want to express my appreciation to Daniel and Chelsea for spending a lot of time, and the mock exercise is really relevant, and we can relate to it, right? In terms of the topic, we can relate to it, but in terms of brain, especially for our assignment as UN ambassadors, that was a stress. So I want to express my appreciation for you guys thinking through this, because it moved me into a different realm of thinking. So
Thank you, Vanjie. Really, this can get a lot harder, actually. So I just want to let you know we were easy on you. So if we do this another year, the point of this is to be challenged, really, to think about this in other people's perspective, because the work you do does impact others. Like, yes, all of us here are scientists, but you have to think about how your work, how you need to work with others to get it out there. There's an end point to all of this, which is why we have GARD. So I would really like to thank Daniel. He is actually a nuclear physicist, so he just listens to Vanjie and I a lot, that he just understands us at this point. And he's been very involved with GARD, so we thank him. And I would like to just really quickly say that GARD is also sponsored by the Journal of Biosensors and Cancer. You may have seen this a bunch in our sponsorship video, but I would like you all to recognize that we have special issues with the Journal of Biosensors and the Journal of Cancer. So if you would like to, we have like discounts and waivers and stuff like that. Please consider submitting a paper to these journals. And next year, we are hoping to have a theme in GARD for AMR and cancer. So this is something that we will announce later, but you all are getting that special sneak peek because you were here today. And so this will really help you think about this for next year. So if you are very interested in this topic now, please reach out to myself, Daniel, or Vanjie, and we can discuss more on how we can continue this conversation for next year. So I will not keep you all any longer. Let me know if you need anything, and thank you again, Daniel. Let's give him all a virtual round of applause, and for yourselves as well.
Thank you very much for having